Good morning, everybody. Your Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Irfaan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Permanent Secretary, colleagues and members of the media. Thank you so much for being here. Today is a historic day for the UK-Guyana relations, and I'm delighted to inform you that as of the 9th of November, those with a valid Guyanese passport can visit the UK visa-free. Since the day I arrived 15 months ago, people have spoken to me about issues involving visas. President Ali, when he was in the UK earlier this year, raised this with Prime Minister Boris Johnson. But people from the private sector, from civil society, from the media, many of you have talked to me about those visas. So it's a real pleasure to deliver this news today. And this visa lift is a real sign of the confidence that the UK has in the growth of our relationship. And together with the direct flight that will be happening at the end of March with British Airways, we believe this change is going to be transformative to our already strong relationship. In mid-November, we'll be having a trade mission here, when British businesses will be coming here to experience all the opportunities in this wonderful country. We hope that with this visa lift, we look forward to welcoming many British Guyanese businesses to the UK to explore further opportunities. I will hand over to His Excellency to say a few words, but it's important for me to clarify just a few points. Those that want a long-term visa, so more than 180 days, so more than 60 days, or wanting to work, or to study, or to settle in the UK, will still need to get a visa. So this is a visa lift for visit visas for up to 6 months, up to 180 days. But this is great news for the UK-Guyana relationship. Thank you so much for all being here.
High Commissioner, members of the media, I want to share your sentiments in relation to the growth and expansion of the relationship between the UK and Guyana. As members of the media are aware, we have been working on the strengthening of this relationship. We have been working on the expansion of this relationship. We have had 2 visits to the UK, and we are hoping to also have a high-level visit from the UK, which we are pursuing. And we have had exchange visits from mainstream private sector and individual private sector groups. Now, the idea of this visa waiver for visitors is not only about strengthening the relationship and building out the expansion of our economic opportunity between Guyana and the UK, but it's important also for people-to-people contact as we try to build our tourism market, expand our tourism market, especially in the UK. The UK has a very large bird watching population. The UK population, they're very connected to nature, and they love more eco-tourism product. Guyana has a very strong ecotourism product. So this visa waiver allows greater connectivity, greater contact, greater people-to-people contact, and will not only do well for the expansion of trade and opening up of new opportunity, but what will do extremely well in bringing our people together, creating greater relationship, networking among our people. And I think these are critical elements in building a stronger relationship. One of the things that we are hoping to achieve also with the UK, in addition to the direct flight, High Commissioner, is to see how we can have more UK financing for our infrastructure projects or the transformative projects. These days, it is getting very complex, the financial market, especially with the volatility that exists. And we are pursuing, as you know, very, very strong terms in favor of Guyana, fixed rate financing, at less than 3%. That is how we've been pushing for financing. Difficult to achieve in this market, but still, we are pursuing this. There are some major transformative projects that we need to get done. And just like the Exim Bank of the US, the UK also have a facility in which they build, finance, and transfer. There is also export credits available. And we are pursuing these elements. One of the projects from the last trade mission that we are still pursuing is that of a new technology to build concrete drains in Guyana at a very fast pace. And you know, the drainage system in Georgetown needs to be completely rehabilitated. We have committed to the upgrade of the drainage system in South Georgetown. And we are looking at the best technology available to do this in a very efficient manner. So today's announcement comes with very hard work too. The High Commissioner herself has been pushing this agenda. It was one of our priority areas when in our meeting with Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We raised it on several other occasions. I must say we also raised it in a meeting with King Charles. And the team, both in the UK and in Guyana, pursued the objective. And today I'm very pleased that Guyanese can travel with greater ease to the UK. However, I want to say to all Guyanese that with these waivers come an important responsibility to all of us. We have a responsibility to safeguard these decisions, that they come with hard work and they take a long time. And we'll be working very closely with the UK in strengthening our systems to ensure there is proper monitoring and to ensure that there is no abuse of the system. As you're also aware, these days we have greater interest in Guyanese citizenship. More persons from the region. We have a greater number of migrants coming in as a result of what is happening around us. So we are working now on strengthening our systems to ensure that our systems also are not abused. So we are very pleased, High Commissioner, at this excellent work and this announcement this morning. I'm sure every Guyanese would want me to express our gratitude to the UK government for making this very important step in expanding our relationship. We are also working on in other areas, the EU. You know, we're working also to bring some ease there. But I know that today's announcement will open up immense opportunity, not only for infrastructure and economic activities as a result of trade, but also now looking at Guyana as an important hub in servicing the region itself. This is what this type of decision allows. So, members of the media, as I said, we are very pleased to be associated with this decision, and we're very pleased that Guyana has really come its way in achieving this. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. I now open it up to the media to ask any questions that you might have. Please first say your name and the media outlet that you're representing.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam High Commissioner. Ma'am, could you elaborate a bit more on what might be some of the requirements for Guyanese in terms of security screening? How do you intend to deal with that? Because it's the first time in decades that we have got this access to the UK visa-free. What will be some of the security requirements to screen? And to the President, what will Guyana be expected to do to ensure that these security measures are in place? And what may be those measures?
The measures for a Guyanese going into the UK will be the same as somebody from Canada or the US. You buy a valid ticket, you go to the UK. In terms of there is no additional screening for our Guyanese. Anything to add?
There is no additional screening, but like anywhere else, when you enter a country, you will still need to clear the immigration. So they might ask you specific questions. So it's ensuring that you have relevant evidence of, the reason you are in the UK. So you still need to clear immigration.
Chabral, as I said earlier, there is no differentiated treatment, as you would have heard. But Guyanese must exercise responsibility. And that is what is critical for me. Because it takes a long time to get to these decisions. And we have raised it to the highest level. We have moved expeditiously on this. And all of us must take responsibility to ensure that the system is never abused. And what we will be doing here in Guyana is to continue the strengthening of our system so that we can have real-time information sharing and monitoring. Of course, we are all part of a global platform with the Advanced Passenger Information System that allows us to do pre-screening also. Every country can do pre-screening because you basically know who are coming to your country long before they're there in the Advanced Passenger Information System. As you know, we're also in the process of modernization, and we're looking at our airport as part of the modernization process in getting the best possible technology to enhance security and create greater protection for our borders and what our borders deliver to other borders.
Any more questions?
Good morning, Kiana Wilbur, Kaiser News. The question is for both the President and the British High Commissioner. With COP27 just less than a fortnight away, what is the position of both parties on the successes and failures of COP26? And what is the message, what is the frame of mind, the vision going into COP27? And what is the frame of mind for both parties to work together on climate change and climate financing?
Well, COP26, as you know, was a very bold COP in the sense that I think the world bit off a big chunk of a climate change agenda that was very comprehensive. We had a methane pledge. Forests came back on the agenda, and that is where I want to focus my attention. I remember at COP26, I got the nickname from Prime Minister Boris as Mr. Forest. The forest agenda is very important in the climate change discussion. And the UK helped us tremendously in ensuring that forests regain an important part of the agenda, and carbon credits and so became an important part of the agenda. But since COP26, global events really shifted all the accomplishment. At the end of COP26, there was a great optimism. There were bold decisions. There were bold steps that were embraced. But the reality is that we had a war in Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine. And there is a crisis. There is an energy crisis. There is a natural gas crisis. There is a fuel crisis. There is an inflation crisis. There is a cost of living crisis. And in response, unfortunately, to these crises, we had a reversal of what the commitments were. We had more coal plants fired up. We have greater use of natural gas. We have tremendous increases in fossil fuel. The cost of capital for fossil fuel is going up on the international market. That, of course, will drive up investment costs. If investment cost goes up, then there is an effect on rate of return and how much companies are going to try to get back in a particular time. So that is the context after COP26. It's a reality. Whilst we have all committed to doing our part on the climate change agenda, we had to face this reality. It is not a reality that was created by the UK. It is not a reality that was created by Guyana. But it's a reality in which we have to live. We also saw some major natural disasters. Here in Guyana, we had the floods and so on. So this leads us now into COP27 and what we hope to achieve from COP27. I think COP27 now is a bit different because it comes within the reality of what we are faced with. And you will see the energy conversation taking an important place on the agenda, I think. I believe it must take an important place on the agenda. If you recall, in COP26, we were going to start off by saying natural gas is not a transition fuel. That was taken off the agenda. And natural gas now is a transition fuel. But we have a more complex energy environment now, where energy security itself is threatened, especially in the EU region and in the UK also. So that will call for some very sober reflection. For us in Guyana, we have advanced the LCDS 2030. We are hoping that we can have, before the end of this year, some key announcements in terms of our carbon market. For us, the world needs to answer a few questions. How is it we're going to raise yesterday I delivered a keynote address at the FAO conference. And I raised the point as to how we're going to raise the money for adaptation. That is more than $300 billion by 2030. Where is that money is going to come from? And if we don't raise the money for adaptation, then food security is also threatened. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. And as you know, and we all know, that only less than 6% of the total financing that came for climate change came from grant and concessional loans. Small developing countries that are threatened by climate change every day can't survive on 6% of the resources coming from concessional and grant resources in a debt crisis, in a world which we have a debt crisis. So this is really a very complex situation. And the commitments made, as you know, were not met. And I guess the developing world will be very strong on this again. So I saw a program, I think this morning or last night, in which someone was saying it's more of the same of the more. And but it's a reality. COP27 is in a specific context. But I'm sure that everyone would pledge again to keep their commitment. And I'm sure that we will have commitment to the pledges that were already made. But if we'll go a step further to say when, how, and the structure, I don't think we'll get there. I would love for us to get there. We'll hope to get there. But I think COP27 is in a very difficult context.
Thank you very much, and a great question. I think the Glasgow Climate Pact was highly ambitious, and the UK remains ambitious in terms of our climate change agenda. There are a few issues that we're specifically working on, and one issue is that of access to finance. We recognise there are global finance facilities, but the ability to get access to that is very hard, and particularly for small island developing and low-lying coastal states. It's very hard to get access to that finance. So we have a program that we have initiated, which is in the Caribbean, helping countries gain access to that finance, both by providing technical capability, but also working with those funds to simplify the bureaucracy to enable better access to finance. Here in Guyana, Guyana should be very proud of its incredible forests. And for many years, the UK has been working on forest governance, improving the way in which the country is forested, making sure there's sustainable forestry in place. And we continue to work in that space and will continue to work in that space. The other area is on the blue economy, looking at the oceans, the opportunities there, and the rivers. And the Guyana has been working for some years with the UK on a marine economies plan. So we continue to work in that space as well. So yeah, the Glasgow Climate Pact was highly ambitious, and we're ambitious for COP27. Thank you.
There's just one point, I want to raise about the region itself. One of the things that I know we're going to champion, and I'm happy that High Commissioner raised this, from the regional perspective, and I spoke about this yesterday, is moving away from the GDP per capita measurement and move to more of vulnerability index. As you know, many countries in the region, they have very high GDP per capita because of tourism. But one hurricane can wipe out the entire economy tenfold. So they cannot qualify for concessional grant financing. They have to borrow at market rate. And this is not viable for adaptation or mitigation funds. So one of the things that we are championing from the SITS perspective is the creation of the vulnerability fund and a vulnerability index, so that based on the vulnerability index, that is how the classification of financing would occur. And if you have a vulnerability index, you know, the Caribbean and the Pacific are two of the most vulnerable areas, would rank very high on the vulnerability index. But if you look at the per capita index, there is no way the region is going to find itself on a list for concessional financing. This is also a problem on the food security side, because the FAO launched a very wonderful facility recently to address food insecurity. But again, the access to that financing is off of the World Bank criteria, which again goes back to GDP per capita. So these are very difficult issues that we have to address, but must be addressed. And it was a very good question.
Good morning, Vishani from the newsroom. A few questions. High Commissioner, on the visa lift, in the first instance, are you or is the UK considering lifting the visa requirement for other types of travelers eventually? And for this particular lift, can you say if it's going to end at some point in time, or is it being extended indefinitely? And for both of you, Mr. President, I know when you met with former Prime Minister Boris Johnson earlier this year, there was some talk of oil and gas partnerships. Can you perhaps say where Guyana and UK, where are we right now on that?
In terms of other visas, there's no plans at the moment to change visas in terms of work or study or settlement, nor is there for any country in the world. I mean, that is normal. So we've removed the visit visa. If you're an American, Canadian, you still have to get a visa for study, for work, or for settlement. And so that will remain. In terms of how long this visa lift is for, it's for an indefinite period for the time being. The UK reviews the world all the time to look at countries where visas might be lifted or where they might be imposed. So of course, as the President has said, we keep monitoring every country. And if there's a non-compliance, if there's problems, then it might be reimposed. But there's no plans at the moment for it to be removed. We're just putting it in place. And so there was a second question.
On the oil and gas partnership.
So I think on the second question, there are a number of issues that Prime Minister Boris, former Prime Minister, he would not lose his title, Prime Minister Boris Johnson and I and the High Commissioner, we had a very elaborate and good discussion on the partnership between Guyana and the UK. And I'm sure that soon we'll be in a position to jointly address you again. Because we had set ourselves a goal of developing a government-to-government strategy. But before we got there, we wanted to have all the programs we're working on captured. High Commissioner mentioned a few on the climate agenda. But one of the things that we want to pursue very heavily, and that is why this trade mission is very important, is the issue of the UK input in the transformation of our country, one, and two, the expansion of our trade in the UK. Let me give you an example. The UK's import from and export to Guyana for the previous 4 quarters, increased by 17.2%. That is, the UK imports increased by 7.2%, and their exports 2.7%. Now, this can increase greatly with just one transaction, one of our transformational projects. And we're hoping, for example, you would have seen us advertising now for a 30,000 barrel refinery. Now, those are projects that can immediately change the trade scenario, depending on where the investment comes from, because it's not only the capital costs of building the facility, it is a trade after that. So I would say that the oil and gas sector would definitely be part of that government-to-government relationship. And the specific discussion I had with Prime Minister Boris is in relation to energy security for the UK. And as you know, we have some blocks that we're going to auction off. I think very soon we're going to move to the auctioning of some blocks. And we have some blocks that are set aside for what is termed government-to-government partnership. And we are looking at all our strategic partners with these blocks. We also have some natural gas field. We have not completed the national gas strategy. But in that strategy, more opportunities will be opened up. And I had specific discussion with Prime Minister Boris on how we can integrate and to encourage the UK government and private sector to be part of the energy transformation for Guyana. As I've said before, our objective is to place Guyana as a global leader in a number of areas. One, Guyana must be a global leader on climate change and environmental services, ecological services, biological services, environmental services, climate change. Guyana must be a top-tier country in the world. That is where we are planning and projecting to place Guyana. Secondly, when it comes to global energy security, Guyana must be a top-tier country, positioned in the world to be part of that. That's the second position that Guyana will have. The third is dealing with food security, positioning Guyana as a top-tier country in terms of food production and food security for the region. The fourth area is human resources. We are now making the investment to have the most capable human resource capacity and capability globally. A highly skilled, highly trained human resource pool, not only to aid our transformational agenda, but to be part of a global mix. That is why we're going after, as I said before, building the Guyana economy 2030 and after. Now, that is the investment in coding. We just announced 150,000 people to be trained in coding, robotics, using ICT. And I've just asked the Attorney General to ensure that before the end of this year, we have legislation for data support, data management support, data banks. That's a huge industry by itself, having the ability to develop data banks right here in Guyana. So the fifth pillar is really creating an environment for a technological revolution, and Guyana being a tech-savvy country that is led forward with technology.
Time for one more question, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you please elaborate on a bit more about the oil blocks that will be set aside for government-to-government business or partnerships? What's the detail in that comment that you made?
Well, Chabral, we will have a lot of time to elaborate. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that this morning. I'm going to tell you that the strategy would be to set aside few blocks for government-to-government collaboration. As you know, Barbados recently did this also, and then some for that will go out to the auction. Government-to-government collaboration is basically government working together on a common end or a common agenda. And at the appropriate time, I will give you the full elaboration as to what will constitute the government-to-government relationship, what will be the role of each partner, but that is something that is part of the policy mix now. The distillation of the policy mix will occur in coming days.
Marcel Thomas from the Starbrook News. Mr. President, for you, you've been championed the case for Guyanese to have easy access for visas to Schengen countries. Do you believe that this move by the UK strengthens Guyana's case, for one? And you would have also appealed to Guyanese to not abuse this system. Do you believe also stats from those, lower stats, good stats from those reports can help that case in which you put to the EU and Schengen countries?
This move by the UK has positioned Guyana in a number of areas. The High Commissioner made a very important point. That is confidence. What the UK government has done for us today is demonstrated confidence in us as a people and as a country. And I think we should applaud the UK government for this important step. Demonstrating that confidence for us as a country and as a people would go no small way in pushing others, because the UK is part of the developed world. And you can't tell us that you have security concerns beyond a certain level that the UK does not have. But the UK made a decision in the interest of bringing our countries and people together. And I hope the private sector also take note, because those who make it easier for us to develop this relationship must also have a stronger partnership with us. And I'm saying this very clearly. So I think this not only strengthens the case, but demonstrate that they have the ability to do it. Now, when it comes to the people of Guyana, you have to determine what future you want, all of us. So if you mess this up, you mess up everything else that comes after that. And I'm a very frank speaker. We don't have any intention of anybody messing up anything. So now, when it comes to the EU, we are working very hard with the EU. The first thing is to remove the hurdle of going to Suriname and having to spend one night to apply for the visa, and sometimes you have to return. The cost alone for that. So that's the first hurdle. I'm very confident that we will get over the first hurdle. Then the next hurdle is to have someone who will work with us. Now, the UK now opens up. You see, if the UK was still in the EU, as an example, then that would have been our sponsoring country to get past the EU visa. So we have to work now on a bilateral partner who, in the EU, a strong bilateral partner in the EU, who will be like the sponsoring country to push this agenda. And I can assure you that work would have started and would have started very aggressively. Now, as to our other partners, closer in the region, all I would say is that this is a strong signal, and I'm sure they're taking note. Thank you.